Hi, greetings from Tokyo. My name is Albert Chow. Today, I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share with you some of the ideas related to my research in recent years. The topic for my talk today is the rise of Chinese as a global language and its implications for language and intercultural communication. We all know that English is playing a very important role in our life now. But we also notice that in the past decades, some languages have also gained importance. Among all these languages, the Chinese language stands out as it has especially drawn global attention. Since the number of learners and the number of second language speakers of Chinese have been increasing, and it's also because of China's global influence in trade, in international politics, tourism, and finance is on the rise. Now, what is Chinese? Chinese is a language used as the official language and a common language for communication for 1.4 billion people in the People's Republic of China. We also know that it is spoken by many people with Chinese origin around the world, especially in Southeast Asian countries. In my talk today, I have a particular focus on the People's Republic of China, as we all know that its economic growth serves as the driving force for the rapid rise of interest in Chinese and Chinese culture around the world today. Now, the items to be discussed. I will outline the present global position of the Chinese language and discuss some of the underlying factors that trigger and sustain the global spread of the language. After that, I will also discuss some of the implications of the spread of the language for global linguistic ecology, especially in relation to language education and language use. Now, I will observe the present state of the rise of Chinese as a global language in light of the population of native speakers and the number of users and speakers of Chinese as a foreign or second language. Chinese economic growth as a major driving force for such a rise. China's impact on the internet. And which is very important, China's strategy to expand its global influence through promoting its language. Now, the population of speakers. We know that China has a population of 1.4 billion. As of 2020, the national language literacy rate had reached 80.72%. So we would expect to see that at least 1 billion speakers of Chinese in China alone. Then the global picture. We have 1.12 billion speakers of Chinese, while at the same time, we have 1.5 billion speakers of English. So we see the numbers, they are getting closer. However, English is spoken in at least 110 countries, while Chinese now is only spoken in 33 countries. And this is a reality. The economic strength innovation. We know that China is the world's second largest economy, with a GDP amounting to about 75% of that of the USA. Since 2019, China has been the top source of international patients, which is very significant. In terms of Global Innovation Index, China ranks 11th among 131 economies. And I remember 2 years ago, China ranked 14th. So you see, it's going up very quickly. China impact on the internet. Chinese ranks second in internet world users by language. In the subcategory of internet users growth over the period 2000 up to 2021, we see that English actually is much lower than Chinese. However, we also need to notice that almost 55% of the top 10 million sites on the web is actually dominated by English, whereas Chinese only occupies 2.2%. This indicates that Chinese is still far behind in terms of language of content on the internet. The Chinese government has been making strategic efforts to promote this language around the world. In the year 2021, China announced the standards for Chinese proficiency in international Chinese language education. This is China's first comprehensive compilation of criteria to assess the proficiency of learners of Chinese as a foreign language. So it is very much like a TOEFL test in the case of English. We also know that the Chinese government has been operating the Confucius Institute programs since the year 2004. Now, nowadays, the Confucius Institute has been operating more than 550 institutes and 1,200 Confucius classrooms in more than 160 countries and regions around the world. The Chinese government has also been extending these Confucius Institute programs along with the advancement of the Belt and Road Initiative since the year 2013. We are aware that the problems and even some severe criticisms in recent years regarding Confucius Institute programs and the Belt and Road initiatives. But that is not the focus of my talk today. And at least as of now, in my own observation, both the Confucius Institute programs and the Belt and Road initiatives that have been going on quite successfully. Now, the implications. I would say that the rising global position of Chinese should not be interpreted as Chinese replacing English as a dominant language. Chinese and English are very different in their histories and in reality. I would understand Chinese as a global language as, Chinese, the one of the global languages, Chinese as one of the languages with global influence. However, we need to notice the significance could be that it could be the first time for Chinese, and possibly also for any other language except English, to achieve real powerful global influence compatible to that of English. Oh, we'll see if that would happen or not. Now, some other implications, especially regarding language learning and language use. As of 2022, 76 countries had included Chinese language learning into their national education system. More than 180 countries and regions have launched Chinese language programs, and more than 25 million people are learning Chinese as foreign language, as a second language. And we also have to notice that the number of Chinese language learners worldwide had reached 0.2 billion by 2022. And by 2014, the number was only 0.1 billion. So we see it's growing up very quickly. Chinese government has also been operating a global online exam service since the year 2019. Now it is functioning as a global platform supporting 6 languages with more than 2.2 million users around the world, covering 170 countries and regions. And we also notice that Chinese has been appointed as an official language by UNESCO, FED, UN, WTO, and etc., mainly international organizations. Now, what is conclusion now? Well, actually, this is not really a conclusion. I just want to point out some points that might deserve our further discussion. The first one is Chinese as a global language. Is it an emerging reality? Well, it depends on how you interpret the global language. In my observation, I would say that Chinese is becoming a global language, a language with global influence, and influence is rising in a foreseeable future. Then we come to the second question. Is China's economic growth and the rising global influence sustainable? What role will Chinese play as a language with global influence? Some other technical issues include the script competitiveness. This can be a weak point about Chinese, since Chinese language is a script language, so it might be very difficult for many people around the world to learn the language. Scientific, technical, educational competitiveness. Here we're talking about learning and teaching resources. We are talking about, in addition to operating various programs such as Confucius institutes around the world, China needs to find ways to attract more and more international students to come to China to learn the Chinese language and culture. This is the list of major references. It's the end of my talk today. Thank you for listening. I'll be very happy to have your feedback, your comments, so that we can continue to have our discussion. You can also send me by email. I hope you enjoy the conference. Thank you again.